Prince was a world-class pop musician. He was not your average pop star, or should I say rock star, or just mainstream artist. He didn't place his creativity in a box. He did absolutely everything. He wrote his own songs, he produced them, and he played all the instruments on his records, and had vocal range like no other. His sound and style has been massively influential today, and he's a true once-in-a-lifetime artist. The Purple One wrote or produced for many acts, including Madonna, Paula Abdul, and Chaka Khan, just to name a few. His hits have been reinterpreted many times. Being that he was such a versatile artist and had endless capabilities, it makes complete sense that he would try to cultivate acts of his own, since he was also a visionary. Some of the Prince Protégés fared well, and released some great music. For others, it proved to be more of a flash in the pan, but with Prince behind them, more times than none, it was a great flash in the pan. The Purple One's legacy was more extensive than people might actually notice. Prince Protégés and mentees were marketed on a very distinct prototype. They usually were one, very beautiful, sometimes even model-esque. They might not have the strongest or best voices, but they have the personality to back it up. And lastly, some great tracks written by Prince. Sheila E. is arguably one of the most accomplished Prince Protégés musically. She was not only Prince's protégé, but his past lover. She is also a well-known percussionist in her own right. She began singing vocals on Prince tracks and soon joined his band. Sheila would eventually begin her solo music career, which had heavy involvement from Prince. He wrote and co-produced her biggest songs and albums. Glamorous Life, a 1984 track, was her breakout hit, and it's everything you would expect from a song that was penned and co-produced by Prince. Funky as hell, with some universal storytelling. Recalling her breakout hit, she said, "That was a whirlwind. I couldn't go anywhere. I was getting mobbed when I walked into a mall. When I signed autographs the first time, 2,000 or 3,000 people showed up at a little tiny store, and they had to shut the street down. This is what you dream of when you think of you want to be an artist." She admittedly became difficult as she became more famous. She says, "Fame allows you to speak to people. It's not talking with someone, but talking to them. I got to the point of you work for me, not with me." Sheila would have some more moderate hits throughout the 80s, and her and Prince would grow apart. The music her and Prince made still holds up today, but I would say the only problem is that it sounds so much like Prince. Almost too much like him, that when I listen I can only hear Prince singing the songs. It also doesn't help that Prince's background vocals are very noticeable on some of the tracks. Her music post-Prince didn't have much commercial success. Nonetheless, Sheila still releases music and performs to this day, leaning into a bit more of a political topic than her earlier music. Her drumming skills are very respected, and she does quite a bit of live shows. Sheena Easton. Sheena and Prince met when they were relatively young. She was already a successful singer in her own right, achieving a lot of hits throughout Europe. The Scottish singer's music with Prince gave her some of her most standout hits. 1984's Sugar Walls is arguably the raciest song he's ever written for a female singer. Who could ever think of a song like that besides Prince? If you don't know what Sugar Walls refers to, let's just say the female genitalia. It's also insanely catchy and well produced. Sugar Walls was banned from being played on several stations due to its controversial subject matter. The song helps Sheena achieve her most successful album in the States, titled A Private Heaven. Prince will later contribute to some of her album tracks, and they would collaborate again on 1987's You Got the Look, this time around being a duet between both of them. Sheena describes Prince as one of the most unique people she's worked with. Unlike some of Prince's associates, Sheena would go on to have a long career, although her only effective crossover material into the US was alongside Prince. Sinead O'Connor. Sinead is most known for covering Prince's Nothing Compares to You. Compares was a huge hit and a defining moment in early 90s pop, although Prince allegedly didn't like Sinead's version, according to Susan Rogers, his sound engineer. One of Prince's associates told Prince that he would make a lot of money from the cover. He went, "Money? It's not about money." He told me he didn't like it, unless he asked them he didn't like anyone covering his songs. But his 1990 interview with Rolling Stone completely contradicts this statement. Quoted from Rolling Stone, "Not that Prince is above appreciating a good old number one with a bullet, especially when he wrote it. I love it, it's great," he exclaims when asked about Sinead O'Connor's version of Nothing Compares to You, which Prince wrote in 1985 for the Paisley Park act The Family. Is he sorry that he didn't get to sing the song before O'Connor? Nah, Prince says. I look for cosmic meaning in everything. I think we just took that song as far as we could, then someone else was supposed to come along and pick it up. Prince would also make positive comments about Sinead O'Connor and Nothing Compares to You throughout the years, so there have been a few conflicting statements regarding this song. In the public eye, Prince has never dissed Sinead or her cover. Although he has made controversial statements regarding covers, Prince was not a fan of some of the people who covered his music, and even one time outrageously claimed that when someone covers your song, the original doesn't matter anymore, when he's done live covers of songs himself. Prince is a hard act to top, but I personally like Sinead's version better than his, and I think it's one of the best tracks he's ever written. Speaking about covers in general, he said, "I don't mind fans singing the songs. My problem is when the industry covers the music. See, covering the music means that your version doesn't exist anymore. A lot of times people think that I'm doing Sinead O'Connor's song and Shaka Khan's song, when in fact I wrote those songs. And it's okay when my friends ask to do them, but there's this thing called the compulsory license law, which allow artists throughout the record companies to take your music at will without your permission. And that doesn't exist in any other art form, be it books, movies. There's only one version of Law and Order. There are several versions of Kiss and Purple Rain. And yet, people still only listen to the Prince versions because they are the best and classics. Yeah, I just don't agree with this stance. He also never really explains what he means by industry covers. He just uses industry as a blanket statement. Sinead was never exactly a Prince protégé, although he wanted her to be, but things went left quick. Sinead is a very eccentric and eclectic artist. She's like a more outspoken and raw Kate Bush. In theory, her and Prince would have meshed well together, two eclectic artists fusing their brainpower together to make some great art, but instead, they erupted in a not so great manner. She claims that her and Prince had a fight. "Prince tried to beat me up," she said on Good Morning Britain. "It was a very frightening experience. He summoned me to his house one night and I foolishly went alone. He was uncomfortable with the fact that I wasn't a protege of his and that I just recorded the song." She added, "He was wanting me to be a protege of his and ordered that I don't swear in my interviews. I told him where he could go, and he went for me. He went upstairs and got a pillow, and he had something hard in the pillow. I ran out of his house, hiding behind a tree. We meet on the highway in Malibu at 5 in the morning. I'm spitting at him. He's trying to punch me. I had to go ring someone's doorbell, which my father always told me to do if I was in a situation like that." She also claimed that Prince was into some pretty dark drugs at the time. "I thought Prince would fall in love with me, and it would be all lovely, but he was the most frightening human being I ever met in my life, even more frightening than my mother." Prince's ex-wife, Maite Garcia, has refuted these claims, claiming that he was never violent, whether with men or women. Sinead also claimed in a statement regarding Prince's death that he got his drugs from Arsenio Hall, which resulted in a lawsuit, public apology, and retraction of statements from her. Now, it's not known if this actually occurred, but it is easily one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard. Nothing Compares to You stands as Sinead's finest moment, and her only global smash. Her career never quite picked up traction for a number of many different reasons. Nothing Compares to You is also one of the greatest songs Prince has ever written. Vanity 6, also known as Vanity. Before the Pussycat Dolls, there was Vanity 6. Vanity is probably one of the most controversial and interesting Prince protégés. Denise Matthews would become the lead of the group. She made her stage name Vanity and the group was renamed Vanity 6. The original name was supposed to be the Hookers. The other two members were Susan Moonsey and Brenda Bennett. Vanity and Prince would become romantically involved. Vanity embodied Prince's musical sensibility very well. The theatrics, sexiness, and controversial statements. It's partially obvious that it's due to Prince literally molding this group, but other than that, she had a natural charisma about her that didn't seem overtly forced and pulled off the Prince act in a way that was better than most of his other protégés. Vanity 6 is remembered for their 1982 hit Nasty Girl more than anything. The cover features all the ladies dressed in lingerie, with a great presence of dominance. The song talks about a woman who is looking for a man to meet her standards, and she's living in a fantasy of being a nasty girl. She hasn't had good sex in a long time, and by the end of the song she's upset that the man she's laying with never had a happy ending. Although different thematically, I always wondered if this song has some type of influence on Janet Jackson's Nasty, which came out 4 years after it. Prince was also working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis for a brief period, who produced Janet Jackson's Nasty. Prince claimed that he wrote What Have You Done For Me Lately, and they used his old demo tapes for inspiration. So the linking is possible. Nonetheless, Vanity 6 eventually released their first and only self-titled debut album, which followed a similar formula to Nasty Girl. Unfortunately, that would be it for them as a group. Vanity was supposed to star alongside Prince in his Oscar-winning manifesto Purple Rain, but that never happened. Vanity and Prince broke up, Vanity got a solo record deal from Motown, and the group was replaced by a replica group called Apollonia 6. Unfortunately, Vanity's solo career never quite took off, and she battled with a crack addiction amongst many other things. She was in a violent relationship. In the 90s, she suffered an overdose and was on the verge of transcending, but she pushed through and became a reborn Christian. She denied all sexual roles, she threw out all of her music, she threw out valuable items that Prince had given her, and anything that would remind her of the life she had led on. She even threw her gold record away, and decided not to take any money from the songs she did. Unfortunately, her crack addiction still had a longing effect on her body, and she even had a transplant. She died at the age of 57, the same age Prince died, and in the same year, 2016. Although Vanity 6 or Vanity never really got to attain superstar status, Prince was truly onto something with this group and act. Their branding foreshadowed what was to come during the 80s decade and several decades after.